It was the most horrifying moment of our life. In February 2025, my 3-year-old daughter was ripped from my arms by deceit of the Australian police. I was told she would be staying with me, but they lied. They gave her no belongings, no clothes, no comfort, just placed her in a car with strangers and handed her directly to the father and family, who had a history of abuse and only court-ordered, supervised visits. Since then, she's been kept in Belgium, isolated from me and everything safe and familiar. It began with domestic violence back in 2022. My then 1-year-old daughter and I were evicted and left homeless by her Belgian father and his family. We spent a year in a women's shelter in the Netherlands, trying to survive the trauma and rebuild our lives. But the abuse didn't stop. It followed us relentlessly. We finally fled to Australia in 2023, our home and safe place, where we should have been protected under Article 13 of the Hague Convention, which defends against a forced return of a child to an abusive or dangerous environment. Australian law was also amended by the Attorney General in 2022 to ensure violence is assessed before any return orders are made in international custody matters. In Australia, my daughter finally began to heal. She had safety, stability, and the chance to grow in peace. Until the very institutions tasked with protecting her finally turned against us. Despite clear legal protections, Australian authorities denied us the right to be heard. They dismissed the violence we experienced, and they completely disregarded the legal mechanisms designed to protect children like my daughter. The facts of the illegal kidnapping of my daughter by authorities, and of the severe misconduct, the child abuse and the human rights violations by Australian and Belgian authorities against my daughter and I are the following. For 2 years, I've raised repeated and substantiated concerns of family violence, child abuse, and threats to our safety. These concerns were supported by evidence and acknowledged at multiple points by Tasmanian police, who initially opened a family violence case file, based, among other things, on behaviors in my daughter, consistent with abuse from the father and his family. However, on 4th of February 2025, following a phone call from a Devonport police sergeant, all authorities in Tasmania and Belgium suddenly reversed their positions. Despite prior evidence and commitments to act for our protection, they began claiming I had not reported anything that accounts as family violence. The Tasmanian police withdrew their intended protection order against a father, who had a supervised contact order only, and prepared to forcibly separate my daughter from me. My daughter and I had to flee once again, but this time not only for the perpetrator, but also for the Tasmanian police, who were wanting to force my child from me, to force her into the hands of the perpetrator. Nobody knew where we were. Tasmanian police used an unimaginable amount of force and intimidation to, for a week long, search the personal homes of my family and friends to try to find us, intimidating my family members by trying to put words into their mouths to have them say anything which could be used against him. Then on 12th of February 2025, the horrific moment happened. On the basis of false promises by Tasmanian police, including guarantees that I would remain with my daughter and that expert assessment would take place, I voluntarily entered Devonport Police Station. But this was a trap. My daughter and I were detained, and no assessment team was present. No formal interview of my daughter or myself took place. Authorities refused to review critical evidence I brought regarding the abuse. The Child Safety Services refused their legal duty to assess concerns of risk. And then, in direct contradiction of all prior evidence and agreements, my 3-year-old daughter was forcibly taken from me in a traumatic experience by strangers who did not speak her language. She screamed for her mother. She had no belongings, comfort items, or preparation, and I've not seen or spoken to her since. And this has been over 2 months now. She was reportedly handed over to the very individuals responsible for her abuse, the Belgian father and his family, and flown to Belgium, despite their only supervised access order and serious concerns of abuse documented in previous reports. It's been over 2 months with no contact. The current status is that I've been completely cut off from my daughter. I've been falsely criminalized in Belgium and am being threatened to by police that I will be taken into custody for trying to protect my daughter. The Belgian courts do not even recognize me in their documentation as my daughter's mother. And on no grounds I'm being labeled as psychologically unwell and as a danger to my daughter. And my daughter, once flourishing and emotionally secure, has regressed to the level of a child aged 4 to 8 months old. And this has been confirmed in official health reports since her forced removal. Developmental damage to a child this young is among the most severe in liability claims, having authorities liable now for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is not only a case of child abuse, it is a state-enabled abduction. It is the silencing of a protective parent, and institutional violence against a child and mother. My daughter and I are victims of one of the most horrifying cases of institutional abuse perpetrated by the governments of Australia and Belgium. Authorities, courts, police, and child protection services have actively participated in causing grave harm. The Australian government and Attorney General must act now. Our legal rights, which were unlawfully denied to us, must be restored. This means that my daughter must be immediately returned to my care, and we must be allowed to return safely to our home in Australia. Anything less is a continuation of the violence already inflicted upon us. I'm calling on the media, the public, human rights organizations, and international legal bodies to stand with us. Please help hold authorities accountable and bring this story into the light.